Welcome everyone. It's 3 o'clock Eastern, 2 o'clock Central here. So we'll give people a couple more minutes to join. But while we wait, I can answer a few. Well, there was one question that was submitted during registration, so we can answer that. So it's kind of a two-part question. The first is how in-depth will views be covered? And then two, will the information increase Grist adaptation? So we are going to cover how to create two different views today based on data that we import into a document. So we'll touch on this again in a couple minutes, but we're going to create this view here that has 4 widgets, and then the enrollment view here, which is 5, and they are linked. And so we're going to learn about creating these views, how to link widgets. And so we'll go pretty in depth on that today. And then as far as increasing adaptation, if you mean getting your team members to work in Grist, it's always tough getting anyone to switch to a new tool. But if you build the document for them and it's just ready to go and it's easy to use, then it's easy to get people to use it. They just need to log in and start using it. Sometimes it's helpful to have little bits of information in there to help explain like what this widget is or what this column is. And we do have widget descriptions. So when you click on a widget title, you can add a description here. And now it has this little eye information icon, and when you hover over it, it shows you that description. So you can add little descriptions here and there to help explain what something's for, so that when someone jumps into a new document, it doesn't take them long to get adjusted to it. You can also do that with columns. So let's say policy number, we could add a description. Because this is a card, we just add it in our creator panel. So 2 ways to add it. Here's the other location. Otherwise, you would just click on the column header, but here we go. And these have the little eye icon again, hover over it, and it's going to give you that description. So that'll help with adaptation because they'll be able to come in, they won't be confused. There'll be little descriptions everywhere. Give another few minutes, but I do want to show you a new feature that we have that came out this past Monday. So some people are familiar with cell styles. You can just do, let me click on a different column, add a cell style to an entire column. But now you can also add a header style. So if you want to change the headers at the top here, again, I'm selecting the first name column in that families table. If I wanted to change the header, you can make the text bold and italicized, and you can make your headers stand out more. So that's pretty cool. New feature there. Another thing that we improved is the import menu. We're going to see that a bunch today as we go through creating this template. Okay, well, we can go ahead and get started. So welcome everyone to our August webinar. Last month, we deconstructed the digital sales CRM template, and that covered common structural patterns, lookup formulas, and different views of the same data. You can find a recording of that webinar along with all of our previous webinars on our YouTube channel, and you'll find a recording of this webinar there in the near future. Because you're registered for the webinar, you'll actually receive an email when that video is posted. So keep an eye out for that in the next couple days. So today we are going to deconstruct the class enrollment template, and that's what we're looking at here. I will share the link as a handout so you can access it, and that goes directly to the template. So today we're going to cover importing from Google Sheets, and we'll learn how to write some formulas and create dashboards so we can get the most out of our data. So just taking a look at the class enrollment template, which you can see up on your screen, this is what our end result will look like. Really, we have 2 dashboards made up of 5 different tables. So this is the class view dashboard. We select a class, and when we select a class, all the other widgets update. We can see the class details here. We can see the instructor details in the bottom right. And then we can see the students who are enrolled for that class here on the right as well. Now in the enrollment view, it has all that linking again. So when we select a family, all of the other widgets update. At the bottom, we have the parent information. Here in the students table, it lists all the students in that family. So this one has 2 students. And when I select a student, these other 2 widgets will update to show their allergies, their insurance information, what classes they're enrolled in. And again, that changes based on the student you've selected in that family. So to see all the tables that these are built on, this template is nice. We have all 5 tables already in the page views, but just to get in the habit, you can always look in raw data to see all of the tables that your data is built on in case anything is hidden. So we have 5 tables here: classes, enrollments, families, staff, students. So classes, very straightforward. It's all of the class information: the name, the time, the instructor. Enrollments is the student in the class. We're going to come back to this one after we look at all of them, just to talk about it more. We have the family, so these are the parents of the students and the parent contact information. Staff information. And then we have the students, which is the student information, like their health insurance, their allergies. And then just going back to that enrollments table, this contains references to student and class. This might be surprising to a new Grist user in the setup, but commonly it's what you want, where you want all enrollments in a single table, and then you just select the class to link these 2 things together. And we'll see why this is necessary when we actually build out the whole template. A pretty common question is like, why not use a reference list? You could look at this classes table and add a column that's a reference list, and you could just list out all the students. What's helpful is in future data analysis with summary tables, it's easier to have this one-to-one structure. So for example, if you wanted to summarize the enrollments table by class, you can do that here. Summarize by class. And you can quickly see how many students are in that class. And with a reference list, you would have to do a bunch of formulas in order to get that to work. So here, it just makes it a lot easier to get summary information, and it'll also make it easier to have a helpful dashboard, which we'll see later. So let's build this out from the beginning. So from our Grist homepage, we're going to create a new doc. And then we're just going to create a checklist of the things we want to create. So first off, we know we have several tables of data that we want to import from our Google Sheet. And so that's going to be the first step, is to import those tables. Now here I just listed the enrollments table. It's something that we actually have to create, and I'll show you that here in a minute, what it looks like in our Google Sheet. And then once we have our data imported, we're going to want to modify our column types, see if there's any places we can add formulas for easy calculations. And then next, we actually build our dashboard. So that first dashboard was the class view dashboard. So we select a class, And then we can see specific class information like instructor and all the students enrolled. And then finally, our second dashboard, which is the enrollment view dashboard. And this one, we select a family. We can see the family information, like the students within that family, and then we can see what classes each student is enrolled in. So not a whole lot of steps here, but the first one is we want to import our data. So let's take a look at what the Google Sheet looks like. So here we have our classes table. This pretty much looks like what the end goal is. Same with staff, students, family, and then this is where it changes. Typically, in a scenario like this, you would have a tab for each class, and then you have the students listed, just like you see here, which is very different from this enrollment table that we created, where they're all together. And so while we're importing, we'll show you how to go from this setup to this one, and it's quite easy. So we will cover that. So let's go ahead and import our data. So under Add New, we can import directly from Google Drive. And if it would be an Excel file, the steps are pretty much the same. Except instead of looking from Google Drive, you're just finding it on your desktop. Okay, so this is what our newly updated import screen looks like. So you have the option to import into a new table. You can skip importing this page, or you can import into an existing table, which our only existing table is our checklist, which has our workflow steps. So we don't want to import into that, but we want to import our classes into their own table. Here we've got the staff, that'll be a new table. Students, new table. The families, that'll be their own table. And then we get into the different classes and the enrollments for within that class. We'll import one and we'll get it set up before we import the rest. So I'll import the 2018 F advanced class, and then I'm going to skip the rest of these. So we just select skip on all other tabs within this document, and we'll come back to it. Okay, so I'll go ahead and import. So let's take a look at our checklist. We've got our tables imported, so we can mark that complete. And the next is to check those tables and set up our column types and our formulas. So starting with classes. So when you do import into Grist, it checks the data in each column and it'll guess what type of data it is, whether it's text, numeric, or date, and then assigns a column type. And then after importing, you can make additional changes to your column formatting. But because it did most of the guessing, it's not a whole lot of work here. But something to keep in mind when you are setting up your data is to follow the drive principle, meaning don't repeat yourself. And if you've been on our last couple webinars, you've heard us say this over and over again, but it's critical when you set up your document. So if text is repeated over and over, it means that there's a better way of entering it. And we'll address that on several of these tables. But right off the bat, we see that here in the semester column, there are several values that are repeated within the column. So when you have a column that has a specific set of values to choose from, you can use what's called a choice type column. So you can change column type by opening the Creator panel. And then we have this column type drop down. Just select choice. So when you convert to choice, Grist will actually populate the list of choices with existing values in that column. And that makes it really easy when setting up the column types after you import the data, because it's already there. So I can just click apply. It's already got my options. If you want to enter more, you can just type it in and enter. You can also add color to your choices. Just click on this little T box. And you can just add color. And when you save, it'll apply it. And so now you can select a semester from the dropdown, And you can also start typing and it'll auto-populate as well. And now if we look at the class name column, it's also a great example for a choice type column. We have 4 classes that are repeated each semester. And so again, we just change the type to choice and click apply. Again, we could change the colors if we wanted. Now the instructor column, you'll see some of the instructors are duplicated. Now, because we know our data, we also know that they're duplicated here in the staff table. So again, following that drive principle, here we're repeating staff information even across multiple tables. So when data exists elsewhere in a document, you can reference that data. Here, each instructor is a single line. So there's one record for each instructor. And so this is like our base information. This is the golden record. We want to keep this updated at all times. And if we keep this single record of each of our instructors updated, it'll update everywhere it's referenced. So in the classes table here, we can reference the staff list from this instructor column. Under column type, we select reference. Now, because the name already matches up to something somewhere else, it's guessing that we want to pull data from the staff table and show that full name column, which is exactly what we want. So we can go ahead and click apply. And now this function is similar to the choice column, whereas when we double click, we have our choices, but the choices are based on this referenced table. So if I add a new instructor here, it's now in my list. And so you just have to update it one place, it'll always be there. Now, if I had an instructor's name change, I could update it in the staff table. And again, it would update anywhere it's referenced. So in the staff table here, the only change we really should make is to this full name column. We already have a first name and a last name column. We don't need to enter this information first. We can have this full name column calculated. So we can use a formula. If you put an equal sign into a cell, it'll ask to convert it to a formula, and we're going to convert it to a formula column. Now, if you haven't seen, we do have a formula AI assistant, so I can show you that here. And here you would just tell it what you want. So I want last name, comma, first name. And so it's going to give me this. We can preview it, and it looks correct. We can save it. And so easy as that. If you're ever having problems writing a formula, just ask the AI assistant and it can help you. Now here in the students table, again, we have a full name column. We could do the same thing, or we can write the formula ourselves, which I'll show you how to do that. Again, you enter equals, convert to formula. Now again, we want a last name, comma, first name. So last name and first name, these are strings. And so when you're writing a formula with a string, you have to add different characters as well. So we're going to enter last name, but we want to separate last name and first name with a comma and a space. So we add plus, and then in quotes, because this is a string, so anything with a string you put inside quotes, comma, space, close the quotes, and then we want to add on first name. And so now we've got our full name column. That's just going to calculate whenever you enter a student in their first and last name, the full name will calculate. Just one less thing you have to enter. Now another thing we have here is this family column where information is duplicated. But knowing our data, we have this families table where each parent has a record with their contact information. So here, Finn Radin is only listed once. So this is going to be our single source of information that we can reference. So in the students table, we can turn the family column into a reference column, and that's going to link the student to that specific family. And again, it's finding the name, so it's already finding that match from the families table. We want to see the full name column. And then here in the families table, again, we've got a full name column. So we're just going to turn that into a formula column again, save ourselves the trouble of entering it. Okay, so moving on to our final table. Right now, this will be what becomes our enrollment table. Right now, we just have a single class in here, but we're going to want to add all of our classes. Right away, we see that the student column can be a reference column. So this, change the column type. It's going to point back to that single source of information in the students table, because in the students table, a student's name only appears once. There's only one record that has their birthday, their gender, their family information, all there. Whereas in our enrollments table, a student may show up multiple times since they're enrolled in multiple classes. Now we still need a way to link each student to a class. So let's add a column. And this will make a reference column to the class table. And just to jump over here, the way we have everything tracking in this enrollment document is we use the class code. And so that's what I'll stick with here. So under the show column, we're going to show the class code because that just is the way things are tracked in our department. So here it imported as the data table name. I'm going to change our data table name to enrollments because it's going to be all classes. And then I'm going to add the class here. So now all of these students are linked to this particular class where their enrollment is confirmed. So now that we have our table set up, we can actually import the remaining classes. So let's walk through that. That's probably the biggest takeaway from this webinar is how to do this portion because it seems to come up a lot. So again, remember our classes are broken up into tabs. Each tab is a different class, and we're going to import it all to create this single enrollment table. Okay, so we've already imported the classes table. We can skip that and skip our staff table. We don't want to duplicate any of these. And then we already imported this first class, the 2018 F Advanced, so we can skip that one. Now we have a bunch of tabs to go. So now with the next one, we want to import it into an existing table. And so we have this enrollments table. Because the column headers match up, they're already mapping correctly, except class. We don't have a class column. So right now it's set to skip. When we select the drop down, it gives us options. We just want to apply a formula. With the formula, we can apply a string. And again, with the string, we use the quotations to specify this as string. That's a Python rule. And then here in my tab, I already know the class code, so I can just type that in. Now it's going to show up red because our class column is a reference column, and it doesn't yet know that there is a match with this class code. It'll work. Once we import, it'll work correctly, but just know that if it's a reference column, it'll probably show up red here. And so again, we want to do that with this next table, map to enrollments. And for class, we're going to apply that formula, enter our string. Again, another class, select your table, enrollments, and under class, we're going to apply the formula. Use quotations to show it's a string. enter the class code. Now the rest of them, I had already updated the Google Sheet to already have a class, so I don't have to type them in for every single one. So the rest of these, we just have to select enrollment and it'll map. But again, the key thing here is you can enter a string when importing, and that's how we're entering that class. So we can create that link as we import. So we can click that green import button. And there we go. Now we have our enrollments table. All of those classes that before were separate tabs are all in a single table. And really, it wasn't much work at all. Last thing here is we can just change our status column to a choice column. So when we are registering students, we can quickly note if they're confirmed or waitlisted. Okay. So now we've gone through our tables, we set up our column types and our formulas. So now we have the data imported, everything is linked using those reference columns. We can build out our dashboards. So for our first dashboard, we want to see all data related to specific classes, like the date for the class and the time, the instructor information, and then what students are enrolled. So thinking through how our dashboard's going to work, we want to be able to select a class from a table and then have other things update. So to start, we want that classes table. So I'm going to add a new page to create our new dashboard. And we're going to set it to start it with the classes table. Now, this is a lot of information within a table. So what we can do is pull out a lot of the data into a card view so the view just isn't as cluttered. So under add new, now we can add a widget to this page. We're going to select the card widget with class data. Now we have the option to select by because this class table already exists on the same page. And so we can select by classes. The second option is looking at that instructor reference column. And because both the card and the table share this reference column, we can link by that. But what we really want to link by is the class. When we select a class, we want to see the class information related to it. So now we select class and the card updates to show the information for that class. Now we have the instructor's name here, but it would be helpful to see all of their contact information. So you can quickly see their email, their phone number. And with that, we're going to add another widget to the page, and we're just going to add a card with the instructor info. Now the instructor's information lives in that staff table. And now we have the option to select by classes.instructor or classescard.instructor. Technically, these will work the same way because when we select a class, the class card is updating. Because the class card updates, it's going to update the instructor card, which is what that one would do. But the best way is to select classes, which is the classes table, because that is our selector. We're going to select a class from the class table, and we want the instructor card to update. There we go. Now we select a class. We see the class card update. We see the staff card update. And the last thing that would be helpful to see here is the enrollments table. We want to know what classes or what students are enrolled for this class. Add another widget to the page. And this time we're going to add the enrollments table. So now, do you want to select by class or do you want to select by the card? Again, we want to select by classes. That is our selector through this whole thing. And then to rearrange widgets, you just click and drag these from these two vertical bars at the upper left of a widget, and then just place it wherever you see the blue dotted line, and you can drop it. Okay. So now when we select a class, we see that the enrollments table updates and we can see the students who are enrolled. And so now we can see why having that enrollments table as a separate table is quite beneficial versus just having a reference list column where it just be listed out in a little field. It's, again, just much easier to see. When I select one, I can see my list of 8 students. It's also helpful because when there is this whole record, you can note their status, whether that's confirmed or waitlisted. And you couldn't do that with a reference list. You could also add information like, are they paid for this class? And that would all live within that enrollment record. So as this is right now, the dashboard is quite busy. We have a lot of data duplicated that we can go ahead and hide. So for example, in this class enrollment table, we have a class column. And this is just duplicating whatever is selected in our classes table. So we can go ahead and hide that. So you can click this little arrow or right click and hide column. Now the classes table, there's a lot of columns we can hide. So I'm going to actually do it from the creator panel. Under the table tab, you have all this list of visible columns. So you can select all and then just deselect the ones you want to keep, which we're going to keep class code and times. We can hide the rest. And that's a quick way to hide a bunch of columns. Now let's edit our cards down here. You can change a card's theme from this drop down and then click the green button to edit the layout. You click the little eye icon to hide a field. And then you can also drag and drop fields. And if you want to change their size, you can scroll them left and right. Just be sure to save your layout after making changes. And so we can do the same thing with our instructor card. There we go. So our dashboard is looking so much better so far, a lot cleaner. It's easier to review and understand the data you're looking at. But there's one thing that would be helpful here, and that would be to quickly see which of these classes are full. And for those that are not full, how many spots are left. So let's say someone calls you up, they want to register 2 of their students for 2019 F Advanced. I have no idea if there's spots left until I sit and count these and see that the max class size is 8 and see, oh, we have no more room left. It'd be a lot faster if we just had a column that said that. So let's add a column. Here we already know the max class size. So next, let's add a column that counts the number of students who are enrolled already. Count. Again, to enter a formula, we're going to hit the equals key. Now here, we want to know the number of students here in the enrollments table where the status is confirmed for this specific class. So we're going to use a lookupRecords function. And to start, we have to specify the table we want to look up information in, and that's the enrollments table. Now Grist will start suggesting based on what you're typing. So as I mentioned, we want lookupRecords. And here it's suggesting class equals ID, which means anywhere in the enrollments table where in the class column, this class code is listed. And so that's definitely what we want. All these students on the right, we know have this class code listed. We just hid that column. Now there's one more thing I want to specify in this. I want to find records where the value in the status column is confirmed. So we just put status, that's the name of the column, equals, and then confirmed is a string. And so we just use the quotations and put in confirmed. Oops. There we go. And so that's going to return a list of records. So in the enrollments table, here's the record IDs that it's finding. That's not helpful. We just want to know how many records are found. And so we can use the function len, and then we put our parentheses around our lookupRecords function. And now it's going to count the number of records that were in that list. And so now we know how many students are confirmed for that class. So that's about half of what we want. Now we want to know, is this class full? Or if not, how many spots are left? And so we're going to add another column here. And equals to start typing your formula. Now I'm going to type out the formula first, and then I will explain it. Make it a little bit bigger. Okay, so our formula here is max, and then in parentheses, max class size, which is this value here, minus the count, so how many students are confirmed, comma 0. So with this, it's going to return the max of either max class size minus count or 0, whichever number is larger. Now, max class size minus count, the lowest it's ever going to go is 0. So when it is 0, you have max of 0 or 0, which it can't figure out. And so when that's the case, it'll return full. Zoom back out. And so now we can quickly see what classes are full and which ones have spots left. So let's say some parent calls me to register their kids for 2019 F Stars A, but they have 2 kids. I don't have 2 spots left. So probably not the best class if they want them in the same class. But we could sign them up for the next one, B, because I have 6 spots left. So now just helpful information that you have without having to click through each class to find it. And so that completes our class view dashboard. We'll just rename it here, and then we can check it off here. So for our second dashboard, we want to see all data related to a specific family, like the parent contact information, the students in that family, and then what classes are those students enrolled in. So we're going to select a family so that all the other widgets update, which means we want to start our page with the families table. So we'll add a new page with the families table. And then just like we did on the class view dashboard, we're going to pull out our information from this table into a card view, just so the view is not as cluttered. So again, we select a parent and we see their information below. So we can hide most of the information from our families table. Again, in the Creator panel, under the Table tab, quick way to hide columns, just deselect the ones that you want to actually keep. Hide the rest. And then we're going to edit the family card as well. So we can hide this full name column. There we go. Okay, so the other information we said that we would want to see here are the students that are a part of this family. And so that comes from the students table. We can add a widget to the page, students, and then now we have the option between selecting by families or the families card. Again, these will work the same because the families card is updating based on families, but it's best to select the widget that you're actually going to be selecting from, which is the families table. Just gonna keep rearranging this as we go. It's going to have a lot of information on this page. Okay, so some of these families have multiple kids. Again, we want to pull out the data into a card widget because it's just easier to digest. And now we have a lot of information. that we can select by. We want to select by this students table. So when we select a student in the student table, we want this card widget to show that information. So we select students. And again, hiding columns to simplify our view. Now we select a parent card updates, the student's update, and when I select a student, the student's card updates. Now the final thing that we want here is to know what classes are these students enrolled in. Add new, add a widget to the page. We want to add the enrollments table. Now, again, we want to select by this students table. That's students, add to page. There we go. I'm just going to rearrange this so the class name is first. We don't need to know the student, so we can hide this since we know which student it is based on what's selected here. And hide that. So overall, some great information. The final thing that we would probably want in this view is to know what time these classes are at. Now, that information actually lives in the classes table. So here for each class, we have this column times, which tells us what time the class is at. And so that's what we want to pull into our dashboard. So this class column here is a reference to that classes table. And we can actually use that to pull more information about that class. So if I keep scrolling all the way down, again, this is under the column tab of the creator panel. At the very bottom here, we have add referenced columns. You can click that, and now you can add any column information from that referenced table. So we want to pull in times. So now we can know the class time, we know their status, and then any notes as well. So again, select parent, we see their information down here. We have their students, and when we select a student, the other two widgets update. So finally, we just need to rename our page view to enrollment view. And then the last thing is just reordering the pages. So in our template, we do have these nested. When we create a template, we like to show the different tables that create the views. But if you have no desire to have those extra pages, you can hide them. So if you want to remove it from this list of pages, because here on the class view, you can add a class. And then now added to. And now I can add in the class name, I can add an instructor, I can enroll students. You can do all of that from your dashboard. So there's really no reason to have these extra views. If you click the three dots, you can just remove. And then if you ever want to just view that data, you can go under raw data. It'll always be here. Now, if you did want to keep it available and just wanted to nest it, this two vertical bars that you see to the right, you just click and drag from them. And then if you hold over another page, you see this green rectangle, and that shows that it's going to nest under the class view page when you drop it. And with nesting, you can then collapse. And so it would hide those from view. And then the last thing, if you have a table like this and you want to delete it from view, you can, again, remove it. Now, this specific table isn't used anywhere else in the document. It was just our checklist. So you have the option. You can keep the data and delete the page, which will just put it into raw data like the rest of our tables. Or if you want to delete it completely, delete data in this page, and that'll delete it completely from the document. So if it's something that you want to keep, you would just keep it, delete, and now it would be here, still under raw data, And if you want to delete it from here, you do have the option. That would delete it completely. So that is our webinar. So if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat.